Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 23. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. And so, to our guest for this episode.
So I'm Nick Gilmore and I'm representing Oxford Archaeology.
What's the object that is in the exhibition?
It's a Roman tile from Prior's Hall in Corby, and it's inscribed with the name of the person that made it.
Why is that significant?
It's really unusual to have tiles which actually have a person's name in them as opposed to a signature, just because it's really unusual to have fully literate tilers in the Roman period.
So we're talking a little bit about actually the person who made the tile. We're talking a little bit about education, the rarity of the fact that you've got a tiler who can write his name. What does this tell us about perhaps the place where the tile was found?
I think this is where it fits into that sort of history of Northamptonshire. I think it's telling us that early industry of mass production of tile, which is what was going on here, is actually organised and it's not just something somebody's doing. It's a fully organised thing which is being run by knowledgeable individuals as a major enterprise. It's not sort of a local craft activity. It's a significant industry, and it's the beginnings of that sort of industrial heritage of Northamptonshire 2,000 years ago.
So we're talking about sophistication in that case.
Oh, yes, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, on the one hand, it's a tile. On the other hand, a complete tile is weighing in at sort of 10 kilos. And if you're making hundreds of tiles and you're moving them around to sell them, you have to be in some way sophisticated just to be able to do that on that sort of quantity and that scale.
If I may, I'm just going to take you back a second, because you said a tile weighing 10 kilos. Now, for people who can't see the object because they have yet to come to the exhibition, 10 kilos for a tile. Just what kind of a tile are we talking about here?
Yeah, so this tile, I should say it's not complete, the one we've got. It would have been for a floor, so it's quite thick and quite substantial. It's probably about 15 centimetres thick, and it's about half a metre square, but made of deliberately really dense, high-fired clay, so it would be hard wearing.
Right, so now when you see tile, I would say flagstone. This is a significant piece of stonework.
Oh, yeah, that's it. And in this kiln assemblage that we found, there were these floor tiles, but there's bricks, there's roof tiles. They're making a whole sort of range of different products for distribution around Northamptonshire.
So when we're talking about an item this big, and we're talking about sophistication, we're talking about craftsmanship as well, which brings us to the person who fabricated it, who dressed that particular stone, are we not?
Yeah, that's it. So this is it, that individual. And I suppose one of the debates here is that individual the actual tiler that would have taken that clay and moulded it and put it down, or possibly slightly more likely, is he the sort of the foreman, for want of a better word? Is he the overseer who's come along after someone else has made a batch and put his name into it? And it's probably that sort of role that you're going to have somebody overseeing, because you don't want to make 200 tiles, put them in a kiln, and they all just crack apart because it's not been done right. There's going to be someone walking around who's a craftsman, who actually knows exactly what they're doing to make that stuff work.
As you said, this is early age industrialisation going on right on our doorstep here in Northamptonshire.
Yeah, that's it. And this is, the beginnings of industrial Corby, if you like. On this site, they are doing ironworking because they're sitting on a big deposit of iron ore, so you're going to turn that into iron, so they're doing that. Then they're doing the mass production of tiles and bricks, and these are huge industrial kilns. It's not sort of making it for one person. But then they're also making pottery. So if you're extracting clay and you get nice clay, for want of a better word, that you'd make it into pots, not bricks. So there's 8 pottery kilns alongside the 2 tile kilns, and alongside iron smelting furnaces. So it's it's a proper industry, but also a mixed industry of just all the natural resources of Northamptonshire between clay, iron ore, and wood being kind of brought together to actually start full-on industry.
This particular tile, is the clay coloured through ironstone? Is that what gives it its hue?
Yeah, it does make it really they're quite red. And one of the things we haven't quite completed yet is we're doing scientific analysis of the tiles and the clay from the site to show that they're the same, but also because then we can start to do the same from other sites within Northamptonshire and beyond, and you can actually match and see how far those tiles are travelling. But just from looking at them, the look of them is quite specific, and we think that they're travelling further outside Northamptonshire from this production site.
You mentioned that the tile has got its maker's mark in it, his signature, if you would like. Would that have been something that fellow tile manufacturers would have done to differentiate, to distinguish them? Or is this the equivalent of somebody saying, Kilroy was here? Is it actually a form of graffiti?
I mean, that's it. It might be simply graffiti. Well, I guess there's two. Firstly, it's relatively standard to have what we'd call, archaeologists would call signatures on tiles, but they tend to be simple marks so that you would know who had made what. So it would be, for example, you'd just use a finger to make a circle on the tile, and then someone else would use a finger to make a diagonal line, and you can tell the difference. In this case, it's a full name, but we think it's sort of slightly more than graffiti because, as well as his name, it has the word fecit, which means made me. So it says Potentius made me, whereas if he was just graffitiing it, he probably would have just put his name. He's claiming to have made it anyway.
So this is also quality control then?
Potentially, yeah, that's it, of actually saying, this is... And you're not going to do it on every tile, because actually if you bought some tiles, you don't want someone else's name all over them. But if you did sort of one in a 100, one in 1,000 that goes with the consignment, then people know where that came from.
I'm fascinated to hear you tell this story because you're painting the image of the person who had made this tile. I remember as a child, I would go down the M1 through Bedfordshire. The Stuartby brickworks were down there, and they would turn out millions upon millions of bricks that all were very, very uniform, and it was an industrialised process. But actually, it wasn't a million miles away from where this particular tile was manufactured, fired in a furnace environment. This is showing the development of industrialisation from its earlier stages, but a sophisticated item to go into somebody's home. This is almost a mirror of what was going on thousands upon, thousands of years ago before we take tiling and bricks and industrialised manufacture completely for granted.
Yeah, that's it. And I think as well, it fits into that even better because what the Romans do as well is they actually start to sort of make standardisation a thing. So you have, if you're building a roof tile, and that roof tile is to a standard size, and that means that, you can repair a roof, you can use local ones, and there are specialists who look at just Roman ceramic building materials, and each of them has its specific name for a specific tile, for a specific purpose, and they're all standardised. And it changes a bit through time, which is helpful if you're trying to work out how old a building is. But it's that thing of, I think people don't really tend to think back a couple of thousand years ago that actually, in the same way now, modern bricks are the same size. In the Roman world, the same thing had already happened because there's no point having different places making different size things and they don't fit together.
What did the Romans ever do for us?
Yeah,
it's literally a translation or a transposition of that phrase. Nick, from an archaeologist's perspective, from your perspective, what is your reaction to this particular tile?
I think it is when it first came up, it was that sort of slight disbelief that it actually was writing, whereas now that it was sort of getting through, we've got past that and we're getting into all that analysis, it's moved into a sort of academic interest of trying to know more about that individual, and then the particular form of his name tells you other things of where him or his family may have originated from. And I think it's moved from excitement and a bit of disbelief into a world now of sort of, actually academic interest.
The fabrication happened in Northamptonshire. The raw materials came from Northamptonshire. What is the story that it tells of Northamptonshire?
I think it's telling that story of the beginnings of not just the materials and the manufacture, but the actual individuals who are involved in that and making decisions. This is a person who, in about 300 AD, was proud enough of what was going on of their industry to actually write their name on something, and it's reminding you that you can talk about industry, you can talk about manufacture, but actually it's the people who are making it that are the significant thing, and that's continuing right on through to the more modern industrial heritage of Northamptonshire. It's people who are making things, not factories and not quarries.
Craftsmanship will always out. Nick, good to talk to you. Thank you for telling the story.
Thank you very much, Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.